Boa tarde. The last thing that I will say in Portuguese. But we will talk a common language of mathematics, because mathematics is the music of the mind. It's the poetry in which we create our deepest and most beautiful structures. It also is the language in which the understanding of the universe, in physics, in biology, in any of the sciences, it's the language in which those sciences are written. Galileo, the great Italian physicist, said, "The book of the world is written in mathematics." Now, what does that mean? Why should that be? Because what you have out in the world, inside in your world, in your mind, are structures playing with, relating to one another. And what mathematics describes through numbers in algebra and arithmetic, through shapes in geometry, it describes the play of those structures together. You get the beautiful theorems of geometry, always so surprising, like the Pythagorean theorem, which says that the area of a square on the short side of a right triangle plus the area of a square on the long side, when added together, give you the area of the square on the hypotenuse. It doesn't look like it. It isn't obvious to the eye, to the physical eye, but it becomes obvious to the mind, to the mind's eye. I was saying that in mathematics, proofs rhyme with theorems. They reveal the structure of the world, whether it's the physical structure, the biological, the sociological. All these are relations between moving forces which mathematics describes. And on the other hand, mathematics is the language in which the poetry of the mind is written. People, ask your own students, ask your earlier self, flee from mathematics because it's so abstract. It doesn't have to do with the hands with which you hold things, the intuition which holds things in your mind. It is so hard because who would guess that certain numbers, 1, 2, 3, are prime, or is 1 a prime, that certain other numbers are perfect squares, and so what? What does it matter that they're perfect squares? 2 is a square, when squared is 4, so that 4, 9, 25 are square numbers, and maybe some other numbers are triangular, or hexagonal, or strange shapes. What does that mean, and why does it matter? Why does it matter? That's the deep issue.
And if it's so important, and if it is so central to our lives, and if it is so crucial for imagination, why do so many people hate it? If it were poetry, or if it were music, or if it were art, it would be greeted with love and enthusiasm everywhere in the world. But if you walk up to someone on the street and say, "What do you think of math?" they go, or they cross themselves, or they flee from this dangerous devil who ruined their youth, so they were never able to have any joy in school because they were always thinking, in another hour is math class, and I won't understand it, and the teacher will look at me in a bad way. Question: why is math taught in such a way that people think it's horrible?
And think also that while children are having such a hard time with it in school, they're out in the street and in the playgrounds playing games with numbers, counting out games. What we call in America hopscotch, I wonder what you call it here, where you hop in various squares. Ah, wonderful, thank you. Where the numbers on the ground are important. In choosing up teams, there's often a way of counting where odd numbers and even numbers matter. So these things matter to children. They matter to us as adults, and yet we don't want to come to closer grips with them.
Nervous teachers teach their nervousness to their pupils. Oh, I see all the heads of the teachers nodding. It's really true. When I first started teaching math, I tried very hard to pretend that it was easy and humorous and had the same humanity as other fields. And within 15 minutes, I knew nobody believed me. You know that math is good for you. You know that math is important. You know that the first thing your mother will ask when you come home is, what did you do in math today? And then I started talking to math teachers. And math teachers are as afraid of math as math students.
And why is that? Because the more math you learn, and as a teacher you have to learn some, the more you realize how little you know. It's gigantic, mathematics. Not only is it gigantic, we, as a species, know so very little of it. It's only been, what, a couple of 100,000 years, or maybe just a couple of thousand years that we've been doing math, and we know very little. We are very small mice nibbling at a very large piece of cheese, and most of what we've found are the holes in it. Push an idea a little farther than you're comfortable, and you find yourself in unknown territory. You find yourself asking questions that are so easy to ask, that are so hard to answer, and that no one knows the answer to yet. But teachers feel responsible. They feel they must know. They are the authorities in the room, and their students won't respect them unless they know or pretend to know. And this is very discouraging.
Not even pretend to know. Our son had a teacher who was famous for saying, "You don't know that," with a tone of real disgust. So you're not just ignorant, you're stupid, and you're vile. You do not belong in the human race. And that doesn't make a student enthusiastic about going to math class. So one of the first things that has to happen is to get students willing to put their heads above the parapet, to take a risk, to offer an answer, to say, well, I don't know, but it could be this, and not expect that somebody is going to say, you think that? It's the change of tone of voice. That why do people love poetry? Poetry is very hard to read, but nobody says, you got that wrong, you got -7 on that poem. It's something that tends to happen in math, where the teacher is nervous, the student is nervous, and the topic is dangerous.
Why couldn't it be? Is this an impossible utopian dream that a math class was like a dinner party with friends, where you all were enjoying a civilized conversation, learning from one another, being ironic, exchanging jokes, having fun with it, where there was no intimidation, where no one, such as the teacher, felt, I have to know it all or this dinner party will be a complete failure. No, you know a bit, and your students know a bit, and you exchange this knowledge as the two of you, the group of you, the class of you, moves slowly upward in the civilization of mathematics. Why couldn't it be that there's no time pressure in a class? Of course there is. There are the exams which you have to have them pass. They have to get over those hurdles, and if they don't, you are responsible. Why couldn't we take those hurdles away? Why couldn't people enjoy mathematics the way they enjoy games? Why is Brazil such a power in football in the world? Because you're playing it in the streets all day long, because it's the context of life. It's in the background of thought. It's in the background of people's conversation. Why couldn't mathematics be that enjoyable? Why couldn't people be playing mathematics while they're talking, walking, playing football? Why couldn't Brazil be famous for producing footballing mathematicians? It could, it will. This can happen. This is not an idle dream.
There's one, what would you call it? It's a statement of principle. It is something to get on your T-shirt, which says, tell me and I forget. Ask me and I discover. And a characteristic of children, even very small children, is a desire to be pleasing, to do what needs to be done. There's a marvelous experiment where a woman sits in an armchair and drops her handkerchief. And a 6-month-old baby looks at the handkerchief, looks at her, crawls over, picks it up, and gives it to her. So our inborn desire is to be helpful, to be involved, to be connected to the world that we live in. And unfortunately, the structure of many schools makes this very difficult.
What we have come up with in the math circle is a way of doing mathematics with a small group of children. 10 is a lot for us in a classroom because you have to know them personally. These are going to be your friends for life. A small group of children, whether they're 4 years old or 40 or 14 years old, any age will work, where you pose an interesting question, you ask, you don't tell. We never tell anyone anything. Does that make it sound as if it's no work? Oh, you have to have a scheme, a plan, an end in mind. You may not reach it, but you have to know what you're doing, where you'd like them to go, and let them make their way toward it. For example, with the children we've been teaching here these past 2 days, an hour in the afternoon, these are children who range in age from 6.5 to 9. We wanted them to discover that there are numbers between numbers. So we began by saying, are there numbers between numbers?
And they looked at us and they think, are you crazy? Numbers between numbers? Everybody knows.
The numbers go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything in between? With another group that we had in America, one girl said, well, that's absurd. It's empty space. We all know that. So we nodded, yes, we all know that. And I happened to know the age of one of the children in that group in America. And I said, you're right, of course there are no numbers between numbers. How old are you? He said, I'm 5.5. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean? Are you 5 or are you 6? He said, no, I don't know. And that admission of ignorance, a confident, a proud, a happy, a playful admission of ignorance is the beginning of knowledge. If they invent their own names and their own symbols for these funny midway numbers, 1/2, fine, go along with that. You can say at the end of the class, if you want to, what you're calling apple over banana, or apple beside banana. Other people call 1 over 2, but that's okay. Anything between 5 and 5.5? Well, now the conversation begins. Yes, no, maybe a few things. What happened?
There is always some rich child whose mother gives her a quarter birthday party as well as a half birthday party, and then you can get into the other fractions.
What happened yesterday here was we got not only a half, but 1/4 and 3/4, and we also got 1/8. And our next to last question was, is there anything between 0 and 1/8? And 2 answers came up, wonderful answers. Yes, 1/6, and no, 1/9. And we said, oh, fascinating, maybe. Don't say no. Don't correct them. Take the answers, write them down. We wrote down 1/6 and 1/9.
Because the wonderful thing about mathematics, unlike poetry or French, is that it solves its own problems. If you think that there's nothing between 0 and 1/2, all you have to do is draw a line and say, there seems to be quite a lot of space here. Somebody must live here. What's going on? And then somebody says, I think I've heard of another kind of a fraction.
Or if that doesn't work, try a different point of view, a different metaphor. Think about cutting up sandwiches into a fair number. Fairness is very important to young kids. A fair number so they're all the same size for you and your 3 friends. Oh, so those little quarters, those little squares, those are fourths. Where we left it at yesterday was either a 9th or a 6th is between, not necessarily halfway between, 0 and 1/8. And the girl who came up with the 9th said it can't be a 6th because the eighths of sandwiches are smaller than 1/6 would be, so it's probably a 9th. And a 9th is a fine answer. All right, she's wrong. It's not midway between, but it is between 0
A
and
better
1/8.
answer we once got was that an 1/8 is bigger than a quarter if it's a kind of sandwich you don't like.
And if this seems to you very childish, well, it is with children that we were doing this, ask yourself, are there different sizes of infinity? Which is as mysterious a question to you as are there numbers between numbers is to 5-year-olds. Are there different sizes of infinity? How can you talk about such a thing? How can infinity have different degrees? Well, it turns out, there's a way of talking about it. There's a way of discovering. There's a way of inventing talking about the sizes of infinity. And all of this is a little frightening, a little scary, a little exciting, a little dangerous, a little off-putting, because you think, I don't know it, and I'm not sure I want to know it. It sounds too hard for me. But it's not too hard for you. You are fellow humans. We all have fundamentally the same minds underneath our different languages. We're all putting the structure of the world together in our minds in fundamentally the same mathematical way, which we gradually come to grips with. Let your students play. Don't tell, ask. Tell and they'll forget. Ask and they'll discover. That's the essence of the approach we suggest. Approach, not method. Ours is not a rigid method. Each of you should do this in your own way. Your personality should infuse your classroom. It can't help but. You'll do it differently with one group of students from another because of the different personalities in the class.
And it's very important that you teach in your own voice. There are math books which come with a teacher's guide. And the teacher's guide says, at this moment, say, "What do you think, Billy?" And you say, "I have no Billy in my class, but I guess I have to say, you're Billy." The rigidity of thought, which is required of a national universality, goes against the way in which our minds work, our hearts work, our relations with our students work, and with our audience.
We'd like to do something very risky. All math circles are high wire acts. The chance of tumbling off and falling are always there, and this could be a complete disaster. We'd like to try not telling you about how math circles work. We'd like to do a math circle with you. There are a few more than 7 people here, so it's a lot to ask for, but let's try it.
But nobody's run out of the room, and nobody has thrown up, so I think we're all right.
Let's see what happens. We're going to ask a question. If you happen to know the answer, if you happen to know how this works, could you just be a silent watcher and see how other people work on it? Give them a chance to discover it for themselves. And those of you who are discovering it, inventing it, feel free to make fools of yourselves. Just jump into the deep end of the pool so you learn how to swim. Say foolish things. Any speaking, any part of language leads to other parts of language.
Because
anything leads to everything.
The first training of a math circle teacher is to forget the word no and say, "That's interesting," when someone says something crazy, or say, "Could you explain how you arrived at that?" Or something which leaves the conversation open. No kills the conversation, and it kills the heart, and it persuades people that they're going to be football players.
What's 1 plus 2? 3? Oh, okay. Sounds right. What's 1 plus 2 plus 3? Great. What's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 15 plus 16? No, not forever. That's too hard. Or too easy. Plus 10 plus 11 plus... But we need in a row. We need a straight row. Yeah. We're making a slight adjustment as we go for a certain reason, which you'll discover later. So my question was, you were very good at the beginning of it. 1 plus 2. I should have asked you what 1 is, but the answer is 1. 1 plus 2, 3. Plus 3, 6. Plus 4, plus 5, plus 6, all the way up to 20. When we did a math circle in a prison in Massachusetts, we were asked, could you try this in a prison? We said, no. They said, could you try it next week in a prison? We said, in 2 months. They said, next Tuesday? We said, all right. We went to the prison. It's very scary. I don't know if you've ever been in a prison, but the guards are much scarier than the prisoners. Hands on the guns, on the hips. We were put into a very small room with some very large people.
They're very huge people, and they're wearing bright orange jumpsuits so that they look like balloons, but with very big heads on top.
Orange jumpsuits for the new prisoners, red jumpsuits for the dangerous ones. And there was a scattering of red jumpsuits. And we said to them what we said to you. They were good on the 1 plus 2.
We said, we've come to do some math. and got exactly the expression on the face that you get if you say to a 7-year-old, we've come to do some math. Like, this is scary, this is disgusting, I don't want to do it. Now, the 7-year-olds are smaller than us. These people were much bigger than us, but there was a man at the door with a gun, so we thought we better do the class.
So when we asked what 1 plus 2 was, and one of them said 3, and we asked what 1 plus 2 plus 3 was, another said 6, what do you take us for? And we said, well, of course, we all know it's 6. And then we said, and what is 1 all the way up to 20? The largest person in the room said, that's what I hate about it. I'm going to leave out all the swear words. We'll enrich your vocabulary later. That's what I hate about it. You ask some idiotic question that nobody could get the answer to. You certainly couldn't get it right. You'll make mistakes all along the way. And what happens in the end? All you come out with is some stupid number. What good is that? So, what's the answer? Don't all talk at once.
After only 4 or 5 seconds, I look out over the room and I notice most people are not looking at the math anymore. Most people are checking their watches or wondering when this is going to be over.
But I did hear a number. 400. 400. Wonderful guess. Write down 400. When doing math with your students, have them guess. Have them make estimates. Keep track of them. Keep a straight face, because the guesses, the estimates, begin to fill in the context. That's the conversation behind the doing. That's the playing football in the streets. 400. Great guess. Oh, that's, what do you say? Two. Okay, you are now forbidden to say anything else. You might be right, you might be wrong, I don't know. 210, another guess.
I think we are speaking to the back of the room.
It's okay. So another 210 was another guess. Other guesses? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it. It sounded good, but Yes? 8,000! It's a wonderful guess. Any negative answers?
Give the prize to the woman in the back of the room.
Any negative numbers as a possible answer? Okay. How do we now move from guesses, and these have been fine guesses, to actually beginning to get a feel for what to do? What would you suggest? Think yourselves back to being 7, 8, or 9 years old. I'm seeing tentative hands, but not quite. Oh, that you're just adjusting your collar. Okay. Give us a first step.
We have a hand.
Yes.
The result must be less than 400, because if the numbers were all 20, we will have 20 times 20.
That's wonderful.
Excellent.
Really nice.
Did you see how that works? Yeah, we know that really does wipe out 8,000.
It not only wipes out 8,000, that's putting us on the road to getting the exact answer. What you said was, it has to be less than 400, because if each of those 20 numbers was 20, we would have 400, but each of them, except for the last one, is less than 20. So the answer, we now know something definite. It's less than 400, it's more than 1. The answer is between 1 and 400. It's probably a whole number. So we've only got 398 possibilities more to look at.
Well, it's...
Narrow it down a bit. Give us another way to proceed. Use your imagination. Mathematics is imagination.
That they forget to tell you in school. In school, they tell you the great thing about mathematics is there's only one right answer. That's the worst thing about mathematics. But the great thing about mathematics is you can give a reason for why you're thinking what you're thinking. It's not just, I believe, or somebody told me. It's something where you can say, I know. How many times in this world can you say, I know? It makes mathematics a great place to be.
Give us a little help on part of it anyway. Say something wild. I'm seeing a possible answer. No. It's fine to make mistakes. I think 8,000 was such a great guess because it loosens up the imagination and the sense of humor. This is all a huge piece of humor. It's serious humor. It's like Mozart's Don Giovanni. Something to do, something, give us a pathway in. Pick a number and do something. Yes? Take the 1 and with the
19.
With the 19? With the 9. The 1 with the 9. What a great idea.
1 with the 9.
Underneath. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose 1 and 9? Make tens. Make our familiar, make numbers we know out of this mess. Yes, you're right to nod. Terrific. And now? 2 and 8. Do you see that you're on the track to the solution? Say it again.
3 plus 7.
Fantastic. But what an amazing regularity to the world. And there's...
Tiny problem.
Well, 5. What did you say? Okay, 5 plus 15. We've got a bunch of 10s, and now we've got a 20. Are we on the right track? Is it the right track but the wrong train? This is great. We now know the answer. Say it again. 11 plus, oh, we've already used up the 9.
9 is busy.
9.
19. 19 and who? 11.
19 and 11. Great. Is how much? So, terrific. We've got 4 10s, a 20, and a 30. All of a sudden, a very difficult problem, a problem that they almost beat us up for in prison. Say it again.
10 plus 20. They're not going to stop now. You stop talking.
30. Beautiful.
12 plus 18.
May I interrupt you just for a minute? Do you see what you're doing with your minds? You're using your imaginations. Your minds have been liberated from the shackles of the old add in an orderly way to adding in a disorderly way and coming up with seeing structure. Now, what was that next suggestion?
It goes on and on until 15.
It goes on and on until 15.
So up to 15.
12 plus 18, 13 plus
12 plus 18.
Great. Another 30.
13 plus 17.
Another 30.
16.
14 and 16, yet another 30.
Everything plus 15. So it's 45.
We already have a 15 taken up by the 5 in a 20. We've used everything up to, I think we've used everything.
We've got everything
We've
used.
got everything. And what's the answer? The answer is 1, 2, 3, 4 10s, 1 20, 1, 2, 3, 4 is, and another 5 30s, 150.
we got everybody?
Add it up.
I'll do the zeros, you do the hard part.
What do you get? I think I'm hearing, just add it up. 10, yes.
5 and 4 are
9, and
9,
2 is
and 2 is 11.
Back up a little bit.
Ta-da!
How did you come out with 210 so quickly? Did you do it this way? Okay, don't say. This is wonderful. This is very beautiful. You have a bunch of joinings, things holding hands that were very far apart. It's terrific. There might be an even more beautiful way of doing it. You chose to do 1 and 9, I think that was the first suggestion, because it gives you something you're very familiar with, 10. And the bunch of 10s...
We come with 10s attached, which is very useful.
After we did all we could do with 10s, you then went to the next thing that could be done. Well, there was the 5 that was an orphan, and so the 5 was put in the family with 15, giving a 20, and then you did the rest of the things and got a bunch of 30s, and there's the answer. A simpler way? Doing it all at once? Yes. That's it.
1 plus 19, 2 plus 18.
Are you not a friend of 20? Are you not a friend of 20? You want 1 to go with... You wanted 1 to go with 19? That's very nice. Now you're getting all of them joined, except for 20. You left out 20 for some odd reason, or even reason. It's a beautiful modification. It's a beautiful streamlining of what we did. One last streamlining. Instead of 1 with 19, go for broke. 1 with 1 with 20. Try 1 with 20. 1 with 20 is 21. 2 with 19 is 21. How many 21s? 10. 10 times 21? 210.
Obvious.
Congratulations to you. When we did this with the prisoners, we had an hour with them, and we began at the very beginning of the hour with this. This came up about, we got the 210 about 20 minutes through. And the suggestion of the 1 plus 20 came from a little fellow at the back who hadn't said anything up to that point and said, I know this is wrong, but, and I know this is wrong, but always precedes the insight. Because you know you're on the verge of something. And when they got it, high fives all around the room, very loud. And they said, can we do more? And we said, sure. What's the sum of the first 1,000 numbers? And they said, well, it's 1,001 times 50. It's 1,001, 50 pairs, 500 pairs of 1,001. Well, too hard to do the multiplication, but we knew how to get the answer. And at the end they said, what do you call this? We said, mathematics. It turned out, by the way, this is just a sociological fact, the little fellow at the back of the room who came up with the answer, we asked one of the guards afterward, what's he here for? And they said, oh, him? He threw a chainsaw at somebody while it was on.
So a chainsaw for cutting down trees, like that.
It must be good in the future.
Yes. You've just done real mathematics. You've come to grips with deep structure. You've seen how things can be dovetailed, put together not in the obvious, boring 1 + 2 + 3 way, where we would certainly have made a mistake before the end. Let things flow. Let there be wrong guesses because they free up the mind. Let there be conversation. Let there be correcting of one another and helping of one another. No one putting down anyone else, but a cooperative effort which lifts all of you and the whole society up out of ignorance into the light of knowledge. Tell me, and I forget. Ask me, and I discover. Congratulations to all of you. We'd be glad to take questions. Angels, is that the right thing?
Yes, with that now, before, pensamos que agora, antes da senhora Priscila Cruz fazer a sua apresentação, faríamos 3 perguntas para a Bob e a Ellen, depois, mais tarde, 3 perguntas para a Priscila, e depois abrimos para todo mundo perguntas em geral. Mas se alguém quiser começar... Primeira pergunta.
You're free to ask us anything. You can say, this is nonsense, it doesn't work, I don't believe it. What did you mean by such and such? What do you do with children who are difficult? What do you do with much harder ideas than this? Well, they don't come harder than this. This is real math.
Well,
surprise us with your questions. Yes.
If your children answer you the right answer, 210, and you ask, oh, wonderful, what did you get there? How did you get that answer? And they said, and the children said, well, I take the sum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you did? What way you can get to the arithmetic progression, 1 + 20, 2 + 19, and so on?
when somebody works that hard, it's important to be impressed by their willingness to work, by their dedication, and by their success. And then you can say, is there an easier way to do this? I myself am very lazy. I want an easy way to do it so it doesn't take so long. And again, the children will try to help you. And when they feel the responsibility for answering the question, instead of being the passive, I sit here and I wait until the bell rings and I can go somewhere else. Children think much more about what they're doing. And they come up with ideas, and you get conversations which really, they are discovering something. They are explaining it to their classmates, which is very hard. If you can remember being 7, you can say, how do you know that? I just do.
Make the children the teachers. Make them responsible. Make them teach you. Make a mistake. It's a terrific thing to do in a class, to make a mistake with a straight
And very
face,
easy.
and have them correct you. And they'll be very proud of themselves. They won't think less of you. They won't think ill of you. You won't lose your authority. You'll be their friend. And you're going to know these people for life. They're going to be your friends. You're bringing up the next generation. When
And you
things are
want
going
the-
badly in a class, I'll often say something just outrageously stupid with a straight face. I often have to turn to the board to keep my smile to myself and let them correct me. We're in the middle of a complicated computation, and I'll come up with a negative answer, say. Or a geometry problem, I'll draw the wrong line. And no, don't draw that line. Could you erase that? Could you put in another line? Oh, okay. And then they're in charge. You become their secretary at the blackboard. The younger the children, the more your personality is important. They follow you as their leader. The older they are, or as they grow older in your care, the more you want them to be part of the group, to be the group of which you're not the leader, but the recording secretary, the math. It's the mathematics that draws you all on together.
It was a very bad idea of the 19th century that schools were intended to bring children up to be well behaved. It's nice if children are well behaved. It's good for them to know how to be well behaved. But if that's the only thing they know, you have a nation of sheep, and sheep don't really do the things you want people to do.
More questions? Yes.
How we can get more this? There's a book, a website.
Yes. There is a book. Our book, Out of the Labyrinth, Setting Mathematics Free, is about our math circle. It's going to be translated into Portuguese. Some of it already has. Some chapters of the book.
Alguns capítulos estão sendo traduzidos para usar nesta capacitação de professores e estamos falando com uns editores para traduzir este livro a português. É muito legal.
And we're an email away. Just email us.
But the English book, we can purchase the internet.
Yes?
Yes.
Wonderful Amazon.
In Amazon,
Write the title.
Which
what's
one?
the title?
Out of the Labyrinth.
Book. The title of the book.
Yes. It's Out of the Labyrinth, Setting Mathematics Free. We have another book called The Art of the Infinite, which has a lot of mathematics in it, always from scratch. We always begin every class, each year, every book, as if you knew nothing, the way we really know nothing, and build up from there. And The Art of the Infinite has the different sizes of infinity in it and such things. We understand that the other book, The Art of the Infinite, will also be translated into Portuguese. A book on the history of zero, the nothing that is, a natural history of zero, is going to be translated, has been translated. I think it's now out of print, but will come back into print.
But your English is so
Oh, yes.
good
Fabulous.
that I think you could read, or it's pretty easy.
Yes.
Imagine a situation when you have a way to get this result, and to make the children understand. Then you imagine that you take so long time to do that. Do you think that's a problem if you have to take more time than you think it's necessary? Do you think it's a problem?
The more time, the better. There's no rush. Don't let the national exams, those hurdles, hurry you past pleasure and understanding. Things usually begin very slowly, and then they grow exponentially as people begin to understand and play with the ideas. Go slowly. Go at the speed of the people in the room, not of the fastest in the room. Go at the speed of the slowest. Everybody else will learn, that's where they'll learn manners, to cooperate and help the people who are struggling with the ideas, and you'll learn more yourself, and they will all learn more as you try to think of the difficult idea in a new way. A lot of different lights shone on the same problem.
One thing teachers find is they have to do the same thing over and over. And you say, last week they all knew this. This week nobody knows anything, which is an indication that you went too fast. And it was observed, but not taken in. And if you do it more slowly, you do it only once. And it turns out you have more time if you go slowly. It's a famous Roman expression, make haste slowly.
For example, another way of doing what we just did, the adding up from 1 to 20, would be to talk about triangular numbers, which I mentioned a while ago. The triangular number 3. The triangular number 6. The triangular number 10. What are these? 3, 6, 10. They are these sums done geometrically. And you can ask them, well, what's the next triangle number? Well, and there'll be all sorts of interesting guesses. And then someone will say, oh, I see, you're adding a new row of dots each time. So the next will be 15. And you go on like this for a while, and you say, what's the first triangle number? And they say, well, 3. You say, no, I think there's one before it. Oh. It's a funny-looking triangle, but it's one of the triangular numbers. And all of a sudden, your imagination and your vocabulary have expanded to include that as a triangle number. Oh, and there is the triangle number before that one.
It's a very round triangle.
0. Yes. That one. And then you can ask them about square numbers. 4, 9, 16. And draw the square numbers below the triangle numbers. And then ask them what's the relation between the triangle numbers and the square numbers. And we're not going to spoil it for you by telling you. We're asking you, play around with this and see visually how triangle numbers relate to square numbers. Play with it.
That's your homework.
Home play. I think we're probably out of time.
Yeah.
Muito
Thank
obrigada.
you.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you.